Hi everybody, welcome to another Timeform video previewing what looks a really competitive day's action this Saturday. Just before Christmas, we got the Tommy Whittle and a good supporting card at Haydock, and then the long walk at Ascot with some really good deep handicaps to support the card as well. And obviously everyone will be looking forward to the likes of Kempton and Leopardstown, the Welsh National and things next week. But we've got some good quality action to get stuck into first. I'm joined by Timeform Chase handicapper Phil Turner. Last time we were on, Phil, you unearthed a big price winner for us. Have you got more of the same this weekend? Or
I don't have much confidence of doing that, Kieran. There's not really a big enough field for sort of in much of the racing. The big hurdle at Ascot perhaps is the one exception, but no, lots of deep ground, and the fields have cut up a little bit. Really, I think that's probably going to be the overriding theme of the weekend's action. And we start off at Ascot. Then I've got a race where actually this is the only race where I'm not tipping one of the favourites or the likely favourites, so we may as well start off there in the 150, the 2.5 mile chase. And yeah, the reason, to be honest, there's nothing really wrong with the case of the favourite, and should he turn up Ascot Arrivederci, I might end up backing both of them because like many Tom Simmons horses, he just looked a completely different proposition when he was winning on his reappearance at Exeter, and looked really strong at the death, and that's probably the sort of key factor because he's definitely had issues in his past, and the fact he was so strong at the death gives you a lot of confidence that perhaps he's just a completely different animal, and if he is, then he's probably not a bad price here. But he had bled in the past. He twice shaped as if he missed last season, and I just thought, well, it might be too soon to be suggesting that he's completely over those type of things. And in a tight heat where there's going to be plenty of pace on, I just thought it might be worth risking Benny's King of the Skeltons. Now, I really fancied this horse at Aintree on his reappearance, and he disappointed me that day. Subsequent events suggest that it actually probably wasn't quite such as bad a run as it seemed at the time, because the form's worked out okay so far. But for whatever reason, he wasn't on his A game that day. His jumping was nowhere near as slick as it normally is. Normally, touch wood, you associate the Skeltons with being really, really slick in that department. Take that race out of the equation. He's basically been doing that since he joined the yard, and he's around 8 to 1. I think it's often a good policy to, if whatever you sort of made your strongly fancy horse prior to it flopping, if you can forgive him that flop, many of those reasons still hold true in this race here. He should still have a decent chance, and he'd been progressing well until that run, and the sort of double the odds of Ascot Arrivederci. I thought he might be the way to go in a tricky heat.
So that's in the 150. We'll go in chronological order. So I'll be next too. So the 205 looks to be between Warlord and Our Power. That's at Haydock as well. The 2 mile 3 handicap hurdle. They both ran in what looked a deep race at the Betfair Chase meeting. That race that they ran in that was won by Warlords just had a lot of potentially well handicapped and unexposed types in it, and Warlord won it, but Our Power was still going equally as well as him when he got hampered by the fall of Arrivederci 3 out. And I thought the way he finished off that race, Our Power, if he hadn't got hampered, I think he might have gone close to winning, and he does have form over further, so the state of the ground at Haydock, it's going to be quite heavy. I think the ability to stay further is definitely going to play to his strengths here. And the thing that I'd be most worried about with Warlord, for all that he's a progressive horse, is the form of the Tizard Yard. They've had 2 winners in the last 2 weeks from 40-odd runners. We're just recording this on Friday afternoon. Fiddler on the Roof's just got beaten again, and those 2 winners they've had in the last 2 weeks were both odds on. So the form of the yard is a big concern. So when you look at the prices, Our Power 6 to 1 and Warlords 11 to 4, 3 to 1. I just thought there was a lot of juice in Our Power's price when he's £6 better off at the weights. And like I say, if he hadn't been hampered, then I think he'd have gone close. He's only got beat 3 and a bit lengths in the end. So he was the one for me in the 205. And then the next one going on in time order. Moving on to the long walk, what looks a really good renewal this year. It's quite refreshing to see the Stayers division more competitive than it has been of late. It sometimes gets knocked for not being strong division, but this year looks a bit different, and I'm going to have to side with Paisley Park. I thought the way he shaped it at Newbury was really encouraging on his seasonal reappearance. Obviously, it was well documented he had that irregular heartbeat after Cheltenham. That's only been his only flop in 2 years, really. And I thought Time Hill was potentially more ready on the day, but I just don't think the race was run to suit Paisley Park. The way that they crawled for the first circuit, and then it only really developed that second circuit when Robbie Power went on. And I think Ascot's going to be ideal for him. He's obviously won this race before as well. And although you've got a really fast improving second season novice in Time Hill and main factor, you don't really know where his ceiling lies at the moment. He might just come up a bit short, whereas Paisley Park Street's better for that run. I thought there was plenty of encouragement, and I thought he'd be a little bit shorter than what he is. He's currently 9-4 second favourite, so I thought he was worth siding on in the long walk. So it'll be back over to you, Phil, for two now in the big handicap chases of the day.
Handicap chases. Well, I mean, it should be said that the long walk probably is the best race of the weekend, isn't it? It's a really good renewal, that, and yeah, plenty of talking points because they're very, very hard to split the big two, and there's depth beneath them, isn't there? Not quite so much depth in the Tommy Whittle, but it will all be about stamina. There's no doubt about that, given the sort of desperate ground we're likely to have at Haydock. And there's actually quite a number of informed horses. I think there's 5 last time out winners are in the field. It's probably all about the big two. And I'm not normally rushing to have a bet when the ground's that bad. You do get funny results there. If you think back to the Grand National trial, you had Smooth Stepper winning at massive price from out the weights. It's set up for those kind of results, really. But I still think it may be worth siding with Sojourn, who is one of the likely favourites. Anthony Honeybull, he's very likely raced, but you know, had no problem with these type of conditions, and it was really bad ground at a very testing track at Carlisle when he ran away, actually routed that field. And there's a temptation, and I'm probably been guilty of it at the time, thinking, oh well, what is that form worth? Yeah, right. Well, virtually everything which has come out of that race to run has won since. Yeah. So there's probably an awful lot of substance to it, you know, plus the fact he won it by half the track. So the chances are he could get a very, very similar test here, and you know, it was a case of last man standing that day, and it could be again the same here tomorrow. And yeah, he's got a sort of an interesting contender in Hill 16, who's been much improved from switching yards from Sue Smith to Tristan Davis. And to be honest, I'd be keener if he wasn't there. But the flip side of that is that he makes the price a little bit. You know, they're both vying for favouritism. If Hill 16 wasn't there, I suspect Sojourn would be a much shorter price. So I think he's the way to go. For those looking for the sort of big outsider, I think Salty Boy of David Bridgewater's might outperform his odds. The way he sort of shaped his reappearance, I wouldn't be surprised if he would relish a longer trip, but he's clearly nowhere near as solid as Sojourn. And yeah, I think he's about 130. And think back to that Carlisle race, and given how well it's worked out, that's probably not a bad price. So Sojourn in that. I've just mentioned David Bridgewater, and I'm going to side with him in the big race, the big chase at Ascot, the Silver Cup, and that's despite the fact you were talking about the Tizard form. Well, I don't know what strike rate he's on. Well, the Bridgewaters are only, I think, on 4%, are they, this year, this season, which is hardly ideal. And you know, he's heading the market. You'd normally be sort of taking on a horse with that kind of profile, but this isn't a strong race for the money. And there's also, for a race of its type, it's very, very thin on unexposed runners. And David Bridgewater's proved that he knows the time of day when he gets a good horse, and he's done extremely well with this one. And you know, you'd have no qualms about the way it ran in his reappearance. It was a very sort of satisfactory third in the Ladbrokes Trophy. I think it's a good chance he may even come on for that run. And in a race where it's largely exposed opposition, he might still be doing that a bit. he's got a sort of real sort of blend of sort of speed and stamina, which he finds these races very easy. And I just think he's probably going to be on the bridle the longest, and hopefully he's proven form in the mud. He'll be able to see it out. Again, around 130. I don't really like tipping favourites in these races. You know, when you normally think that they're normally sort of over bet, but I don't think he is in this instance. I think he's the way to go. If you're looking for an outsider, funnily enough, the Tizar's Mr. Malarkey, I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of cropped up again at somewhere. But you're right to flag up the yards form. It's the main reason which put me off back in any of theirs at the minute. It is mixed. They've had a few run well, but it's too sort of hit and miss really. He's definitely a stare. He's won round the track before, and because he's been in and out over the last 2 years, he's not that high in the weights for a horse who's won a couple of big races really. So I think he'll crop up again somewhere, but whether it's tomorrow is a big if given the stable form. So I'm over in an hour and a bit, but the Conditional I think is a very solid bet in that race.
Cool. And I saw Regal Encore was out again at Ascot, the old standing disher on there.
I should have mentioned him. He's won this race twice before, so it's like, yeah, you know what you're getting with him. Well, you don't normally know what you're getting because he is an in and out horse, but around Ascot he's pretty consistent, isn't he? And yeah. He should be in the mix.
So that's Phil's 3, and then there's just one more from me in the 3:35 at Ascot, the 2 mile grade 3 Betfair Exchange handicap, and the one I like here is John Joe O'Neill's Arrivederci. He was a horse that I was keen to follow it throughout this season, and he made a winning handicap and seasonal reappearance at Wetherby when he beat Warlord and he beat Shang Tang, and both those two have come out and won since. And then he ran in that race what Our Power and the likes ran in at Haydock last time, and he was still going well 3 out when he came to grief. Handicappers raised him £2. It's hard to say exactly where he would have finished, but the fact he was still going well suggests that he would have played a hand in the finish. I don't think the drop back to 2 miles is an issue given the state of the ground at Ascot, and we've seen what John Joe's been up to this season in these big handicaps, the likes of Cloth Cap, and even the enigmatic Sky Pirate got a brilliant ride from Tom Scudamore last weekend to win at Cheltenham. So in what looks a big field, it was potentially light on improvers, and he looks to be a horse whose profile's still in the ascendancy. He's only got a mark of 138. I think that still has a bit of scope. I could see him running in quite a few major handicaps and running competitively throughout the season. And Buzz is the likely favourite, who was impressive here last time, but that was a really weak contest for the grade, I thought. And it seems every year Nicky Henderson seems to have a fancied horse in this, and I just thought he was one to be. Yeah, he's got 2 in this. Yeah, yeah, he's got the McManus horse as well. But I just thought it was worth taking Buzz on with Arrivederci. Malaya, the Paul Nicholls show, Malaya is probably going to be there or thereabouts, but it would be the John Joe O'Neill runner for me in this contest. So that's
as you said. Just it's funny you should say about it. It is short and improvers. It's a bit similar to the Silver Cup in that it's a bigger field, but it's not. You know, it is. You'd normally find in a race like this there'd be more sort of up and coming horses than there are.
Yeah.
But if there is one, it is Buzz, and if he wins by half the straight, then we'll know he's as good as he is. But you know, given that is, I can see why sort of. You know, Arrivederci is a much bigger price, isn't he? And I can definitely see the case for him.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm surprised that there isn't sort of a novice having a crack at this big handicap. Something you tend to have quite a lot of success in a novice in a big field, competitive handicap. So I saw 3rd time Lucky was entered. He ended up not running. So like you say, it's ended up quite light on improvers, but hopefully Arrivederci is still one that is on the upgrade. So that's 3 apiece this Saturday. Hopefully we've picked a few winners there. So if anyone hasn't done their Christmas shopping yet, they can go out and do the last minute shop with their winnings. But stay tuned for the channel over the Christmas period. There'll be more previews, the likes of the King George and the Welsh National and things. But from us, that's this Saturday covered. Phil, thank you very much for your time.
Cheers, Kieran.